My name is Ethan Carter, and I am married to one of the most powerful women in the country. Most people knew Victoria Carter as the CEO who appeared on magazine covers and business channels every week. They knew her as the woman who closed impossible deals and controlled billion-dollar decisions. To me, she was simply my wife. Or at least she used to be. That morning, I stood in our kitchen preparing breakfast. I glanced at the clock and sighed. "Victoria, your coffee is getting cold." A few seconds later, she walked in while typing on her phone. "Thanks." She took one sip without looking at me. "You should eat something." "I'm not hungry." "You said that yesterday, too." "I have a board meeting in an hour, Ethan." I forced a smile. "Right." She grabbed her briefcase. "I'll be home late." "Again?" She paused. "It's important." "When was the last time we had dinner together?" She looked away. "I don't know." Neither did I. A moment later, the front door closed. I stood alone in the silence. That evening, I attended one of her company's biggest events. I adjusted my suit and entered the ballroom. Employees rushed around carrying drinks and greeting executives. A young employee stopped me. "Sir, guests should register at the front desk." I blinked. "I'm not a guest." "Oh, sorry. Which department are you from?" I smiled awkwardly. "None." Before I could explain, he hurried away. I watched him leave. A strange ache settled in my chest. Nearby, several employees were talking. "Have you ever met the CEO?" "Only once." "She's incredible." "I heard she never slows down." Their voices filled the room. Nobody mentioned her husband. Nobody even knew I existed. Then I spotted Victoria across the ballroom. She stood surrounded by investors. For a moment, I waited for her eyes to find mine. Eventually they did. I smiled. She gave a small nod before turning back to her conversation. That was it. Just a nod. I walked toward her anyway. One executive looked at me. "Excuse me, sir. We're discussing business." Victoria finally spoke. "It's okay." For a second, I felt relieved. Then she added, "Ethan, can you give us a few minutes?" A few minutes. Those words hit harder than they should have. "Of course." I stepped away. Nobody stopped me. Nobody cared. Hours later, I drove home alone. The house felt larger than ever. Empty. Quiet. Cold. I changed clothes and sat in the living room. My eyes drifted toward a framed wedding photo. I picked it up carefully. Victoria was smiling in the picture. So was I. Back then, her hand never left mine. Back then, she looked at me like I mattered. I traced the edge of the frame. What happened to us? The room offered no answer. I stared at the photograph for a long time. Then a painful thought crossed my mind. Maybe our marriage still existed on paper. Maybe the ring still existed on our fingers. But somewhere along the way, the husband and wife inside that photograph had disappeared. And as I sat there alone, staring at the memory of who we used to be, I couldn't stop wondering when we had become complete strangers. Our anniversary arrived on a rainy Thursday. I had remembered the date for weeks. Victoria hadn't mentioned it once. Still, I refused to give up. I spent the entire afternoon cooking her favorite meal. I set the dining table carefully and placed candles in the center. A bottle of wine waited beside 2 glasses. When everything was ready, I checked the time. 7 o'clock. Then 8. Then 9. I picked up my phone and sent a message. "Are you on your way home?" No reply. At 10, The candles had burned halfway down. At 10:30, I finally heard a car outside. My heart jumped. I opened the door with a smile. The smile disappeared instantly. Victoria wasn't alone. Lucas stepped inside behind her. "Sorry for the interruption," he said with a friendly grin. Victoria removed her coat. "We had a business emergency." I looked at the dining table. "Tonight?" She glanced at the food. "Oh." That single word hurt more than anger would have. Lucas looked around. "You cooked all this yourself?" "Yes." "That's impressive." His smile remained polite. Then he added, "Most men would probably spend their time building careers instead." I knew exactly what he meant. I forced a smile. Not everyone has the same priorities. Of course. Victoria walked toward the table. "We don't have much time." Lucas nodded. "The investors are expecting our proposal first thing tomorrow." I stood there quietly while they discussed contracts and numbers. Neither acknowledged the candles. Neither mentioned our anniversary. After 30 minutes, Lucas gathered his papers. "I should go." Victoria walked him to the door. "Call me when you get home." "I will." Before leaving, he looked at me. "Good seeing you, Ethan." I nodded. The door closed behind him. Silence filled the house. Victoria returned to the dining room. "You seem upset." I laughed softly. "Do I?" She crossed her arms. "What's wrong?" For several seconds, I said nothing. Then I pointed at the table. The candles were almost gone. The food was cold. Understanding finally appeared in her eyes. "Ethan, do you know what today is?" She looked away. I already knew the answer. "I'm sorry. That's our anniversary." "I've been busy." I stared at her. 5 years earlier, she had promised she would never let work come between us. Tonight, that promise felt dead. I took a slow breath. Then I asked the question I had avoided for years. "Do you even see me anymore?" She frowned. "What kind of question is that?" "A simple one." "Ethan, you're being dramatic." The words landed like a knife. Not because they were loud, because they were cold. I waited for her to say something else. To apologize. To fight for us. She didn't. For the first time, I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I didn't beg for attention. I simply nodded. "Okay." She looked surprised. "That's it?" "Yes." I picked up the untouched wine glass. Inside, something was changing. I still loved Victoria. That hadn't disappeared. But as I looked at the woman standing across from me, another truth finally became impossible to ignore. I might love her with all my heart, but she no longer valued me. And for the first time, I accepted it. The week after our anniversary, I stopped waiting for things to change. Instead, I called my sister. "Grace?" "Ethan, finally. Are you alive?" I laughed. "Barely." "Come have lunch with me." 2 hours later, I sat across from her in a small cafe. She stared at me for several seconds. "What?" "You look exhausted." "I'm fine." "No, you're not." I looked down at my coffee. Grace sighed. "When was the last time you did something for yourself?" "I don't know." "That's a problem." Before I could answer, she reached across the table. "Where did my brother go?" The question stayed with me all day. That evening, I called my best friend. "Hey, Noah. Look who finally remembered my number." Very funny. We met the next afternoon. After listening to me for nearly an hour, Noah shook his head. You're disappearing. I know. No, Ethan. I mean it. You've spent years building Victoria's life. I remained silent. When did you stop building your own? His words hit hard because they were true. For years, I had focused entirely on Victoria's success. My dreams had slowly faded into the background. Noah leaned forward. Remember architecture school? I smiled slightly. Barely. You were obsessed. I loved it. Then why did you quit? The answer came immediately. Because Victoria needed me. He nodded. And now? I didn't answer. Because we both knew. Victoria didn't need me anymore. That night, I searched through old boxes in the attic. Eventually, I found them. My sketches. My designs. My unfinished projects. I sat on the floor for hours studying every page. For the first time in years, I felt something unexpected. Excitement. The next morning, I opened architectural software on my laptop. My hands hesitated above the keyboard. Then I started drawing. One line. Then another. Hours passed without me noticing. When Victoria came home, I quickly minimized the screen. She glanced at me. Still upset? No. You seem distant. I'm just busy. She looked surprised. Doing what? Personal projects. She nodded slowly. I figured you were still angry. I'm not. That wasn't entirely true. I was hurt. But what I felt now was bigger than anger. I had stopped expecting anything from her. Over the following weeks, I spent every spare moment working. New designs. New concepts. New possibilities. The more I created, the more I remembered who I used to be. One evening, Grace called. You sound happier. I think I am. Good. What if it's too late? For what? To start over. She laughed. Ethan, you're still breathing. It's not too late. Those words stayed with me. A few days later, I visited a small apartment across town. The landlord unlocked the door. It's not huge. I stepped inside. The place was simple. Quiet. Clean. Mine. What do you think? He asked. I looked around slowly. Then I smiled. I'll take it. An hour later, I signed the lease. As I walked back to my car holding the keys, my heart pounded. Nobody knew. Not Grace. Not Noah. And definitely not Victoria. Because this apartment wasn't just a place to live. It was the first step toward a future that no longer included my wife. And for the first time, that possibility felt real. A month after renting the apartment, my life looked completely different. Most mornings, I worked on architectural designs instead of waiting for Victoria's schedule. One afternoon, I attended a small architecture networking event. I almost didn't go. Thankfully, I did. I was reviewing project displays when a voice spoke beside me. That's a clever use of space. I turned around. A woman smiled and pointed at one of my sketches. Did you design this? Yeah. It's impressive. Thank you. She extended her hand. I'm Emma Reed. Ethan Carter. She studied another drawing. How long have you been working as an architect? I laughed. I haven't. What do you mean? I gave up on it years ago. Her eyebrows rose. Then why does your work look professional? I shrugged. I guess I never completely stopped loving it. Emma smiled. I understand that. For the next hour, we talked about design ideas. Nothing else. No business politics. No corporate gossip. Just architecture. Before leaving, she said, "Can I see more of your work sometime?" Sure. Good. I'd hate to lose contact with someone this talented. Those words stayed with me long after she left. Talented. I couldn't remember the last time anyone had called me that. Over the following weeks, Emma and I became friends. Whenever I showed her a new design, she paid attention. Every detail. Every idea. One afternoon, she pointed at a sketch. Isn't this similar to the community center concept you mentioned last week? I blinked. You remember that? Of course. The answer surprised me. Because she actually did remember. Later, while drinking coffee together, she asked, "What's your goal?" My goal? Yeah. What do you want? Nobody had asked me that question in years. I thought carefully. I want to build something that's mine. Emma nodded. Then do it. You make it sound easy. It isn't easy. It's just worth it. For the first time in a very long time, I felt appreciated. Not as someone's husband. Not as someone's support system. Just as myself. Meanwhile, things at home continued changing. One evening, Victoria walked into the kitchen while I was preparing to leave. Where are you going? I have plans. She frowned. Again? Yes. You've been out a lot lately. I grabbed my jacket. I know. You're barely home. I looked at her quietly. The irony almost made me laugh. For years, I had waited for her. Now she was noticing my absence. Victoria crossed her arms. What happened to you? What do you mean? You've changed. I nodded. You're right. Why? For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I answered honestly. I finally remembered who I am. The words hung in the air between us. Victoria stared at me. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed again. For the first time since I had known her, she seemed completely speechless. And for the first time in years, I walked out the door without feeling guilty. Because I wasn't abandoning myself anymore. I was finally finding my way back. The argument started over something small. At least that's how it appeared. In reality, it had been building for years. Victoria arrived home just after 9. I was finishing dinner when she walked into the kitchen. You didn't answer my calls. I looked up. I was working. She frowned. On those architecture projects again? Yes. You've become obsessed. I laughed softly. That's interesting, coming from you. Her expression hardened. What does that mean? It means I've spent years watching you choose work over everything else. This isn't the same. Why not? Because my work matters. The moment the words left her mouth, silence filled the room. I stared at her. My work matters too. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Victoria rubbed her temples. I don't want to fight. Neither do I. But we both knew we were already fighting. She pulled out a chair and sat down. We haven't been getting along lately. Lately? Her eyes narrowed. Fine, for a while. I nodded. Years, Victoria. That's ridiculous. No. She leaned forward. We can fix this. I almost smiled. The strange thing was that she still thought we were discussing a temporary problem. She didn't understand how far gone things really were. I walked to the dining table, A folder rested there. I picked it up. Victoria watched me. "What's that?" Without answering, I placed it in front of her. She opened it casually. Then she laughed. Actually laughed. I wasn't surprised. For years, I had always stayed. Every argument ended the same way. I forgave. I waited. I hoped. She looked up with amusement. "Very funny." I said nothing. The smile slowly faded from her face. Her eyes moved across the pages again. Then she reached the last page. My signature stared back at her. The room became completely silent. Victoria looked up. "What is this?" "You know what it is." "No." Her voice sounded weaker. "No, Ethan." I pulled out a chair and sat across from her. "What are you doing?" "I'm leaving." For the first time since I'd met her, uncertainty appeared in her eyes. Real uncertainty. Not annoyance. Not frustration. Fear. She pushed the papers away. "This is ridiculous." "It isn't. We're married." "I know." "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious." Victoria stood abruptly. "No." The single word echoed through the room. "No, I won't sign these." I nodded. "I expected that." "Because you're angry." "I'm not angry." "Then what is this?" I looked directly at her. This is me finally accepting reality. Her breathing became uneven. "We can talk about this." "We've had years to talk." "You don't mean this." The sadness in her voice almost hurt more than the anger. But my decision didn't change. Victoria pointed at the papers. "You're going to regret this." I shook my head. "No." "How can you be so sure?" Because she still didn't understand. She thought this decision had been made tonight. During this argument. Over this conversation. She was wrong. I took a slow breath. Then I answered. This decision wasn't made today. She stared at me silently. "It was made every time you forgot me." Her expression cracked. Every broken promise. Her eyes filled with panic. Every lonely night. Ethan. And every year I spent loving someone who stopped valuing me. For once, the Ice Queen looked completely helpless. But the man who once would have rushed to comfort her was already gone. Moving into my apartment felt strange at first. Not because it was uncomfortable. Because it was peaceful. The silence there felt different. It wasn't the lonely silence I had lived with for years. It felt like freedom. A week after moving in, Noah visited. He looked around the apartment and grinned. "Not bad. I've seen worse." "You seem happier." I smiled. "I think I am." He sat on the couch. "Good. It's about time." For the first time in years, I didn't spend my evenings waiting for someone to come home. Instead, I worked. Every day, my architectural designs improved. One morning, I received an unexpected email. I called Emma immediately. "You're not going to believe this." "What happened?" "A development company wants to review my portfolio." She laughed. "See? I told you." "Told me what?" "That your work deserved attention." I sat down slowly. For years, I had convinced myself my dream was gone. Now, it felt alive again. That evening, Grace called. "So, Mr. Future Architect." I laughed. "Don't start." "I'm serious. I'm proud of you." Those simple words meant more than she probably realized. Over the next month, my schedule became busy. Meetings, design presentations, new opportunities. And through all of it, I spent time with people who genuinely wanted me around. One Saturday afternoon, Emma joined Noah, Grace, and me for lunch. Noah pointed at Emma. "You're responsible for this, aren't you?" Emma blinked. "For what?" Ethan, smiling again. I shook my head. "Ignore him." "No," Grace said. "He has a point." Emma laughed. "I'm just happy he's chasing his dream." The conversation continued for hours. And for once, I never felt invisible. Meanwhile, updates about Victoria reached me occasionally, mostly through mutual acquaintances. Apparently, she had become difficult to work with, more withdrawn, more distracted. One evening, my phone rang unexpectedly. It was Sophia, Victoria's mother. "Hello?" "Ethan." "Hi, Sophia." We exchanged small talk before she sighed heavily. "She's struggling." I remained silent. Sophia continued. "The house feels empty now." I closed my eyes. Part of me wasn't surprised. For years, I had filled spaces Victoria never noticed. Now those spaces were empty. Sophia lowered her voice. "I confronted her yesterday." "What did you say?" "The truth." I leaned back in my chair. "What truth?" "That she spent years assuming you would never leave." Her words hung in the air. I could almost picture the conversation. Sophia wasn't the type to soften reality. "What did Victoria say?" "Nothing at first." I wasn't surprised. "And then?" "She cried." The answer caught me off guard. Sophia sighed again. "She's finally realizing what she lost." I stared out my apartment window. The city lights glowed below. For a moment, I remembered the man who had waited endlessly for Victoria to notice him. That man would have rushed back. This version of me couldn't. Because understanding wasn't enough. Regret wasn't enough. Realization wasn't enough. The damage had already been done. People often believe apologies can fix everything. Sometimes they can. But some mistakes don't break a relationship overnight. They destroy it slowly. One forgotten promise at a time. One lonely night at a time. 1 year at a time. And by the time Victoria finally understood my value, I had already learned how to live without her. That was the tragedy neither of us could change. 3 months after leaving Victoria, I received an unexpected phone call. The screen showed Daniel Brooks, one of Victoria's senior executives. I answered. "Daniel?" "Ethan, do you have a minute?" "Sure." His voice sounded unusually serious. "I discovered something." I leaned forward. "What kind of something?" "Something you should hear." An hour later, I sat across from Daniel in a quiet cafe. He slid a folder across the table. I frowned. "What's this?" "Evidence." "Of what?" "Lucas." My stomach tightened. Daniel opened the folder. Inside were emails, internal reports, and message records. I looked at him. "I don't understand." "You will." For the next 20 minutes, Daniel explained everything. The deeper he went, the colder I felt. Lucas had manipulated information, changed details, created confusion. Not enough to be obvious, just enough to create distance. When Daniel finished, I sat silently. "You're sure?" "Completely." Before I could respond, another voice spoke behind me. "Ethan." I turned. Olivia Bennett approached our table. She looked nervous. Daniel nodded at her. Tell him. Olivia sat down slowly. I should have spoken sooner. About what? She took a deep breath. Lucas altered messages. My chest tightened. What messages? Messages between you and Victoria. I stared at her. What are you saying? I'm saying he intentionally created misunderstandings. The world suddenly felt very quiet. Olivia continued. I caught him changing meeting information once. Why didn't you report it? I was afraid. I couldn't even blame her. Lucas had been powerful, connected, protected. Daniel opened another file. There are witnesses now. I looked at the documents again. Every page revealed another lie, another manipulation, another calculated decision. Finally, I asked the question that mattered. Why? Olivia looked down. He wanted influence. Daniel nodded. And he knew dividing you and Victoria made that easier. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Eventually, I laughed. Not because anything was funny, because the truth felt absurd. Months ago, I would have been devastated. Now, I mostly felt tired. A few days later, news spread throughout the company. Lucas was terminated. Investigations followed. His reputation collapsed almost overnight. People who once defended him disappeared. The empire he built from lies crumbled quickly. Later that week, my phone rang again. Victoria. I considered ignoring it. Instead, I answered. Ethan. Her voice sounded fragile. I know. She exhaled shakily. Everything. I closed my eyes. Daniel told me. I can't believe it. Neither could I. For a moment, silence filled the line. Then Victoria whispered, he poisoned everything. I understood why she wanted that explanation. Because it gave the pain a face. A villain. Someone to blame. But life wasn't that simple. I spoke carefully. Lucas helped damage our relationship. Victoria didn't respond. The silence told me she already knew what came next. But he didn't destroy it. Her breathing caught. Ethan. He created lies. Tears entered her voice. I know. But every lonely night was real. She remained silent. Every forgotten anniversary was real. I heard her crying softly. Every time I needed you, and you chose something else was real. The truth hurt because it couldn't be argued away. Lucas had poisoned trust, but neglect had poisoned love. And only one of those wounds had come from Victoria herself. For the first time, she finally understood the difference. And that understanding hurt more than any lie Lucas ever told. Victoria showed up at my apartment without warning. I opened the door and froze. Ethan. Victoria? She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. Can I come in? I stepped aside slowly. Sure. She walked in, looking around my place. This is yours now. Yes. She swallowed hard. I needed to see you. I closed the door. Why? Her voice cracked immediately. Because I was wrong. I stayed quiet. She turned toward me. About everything. I exhaled slowly. Victoria. No, let me say it. She took a shaky breath. I ignored you. I prioritized work. I let you disappear in my life. My chest tightened. I didn't see it at the time, she continued, but I see it now. I leaned against the wall. It took a lot for you to come here. She nodded. I've been trying to call you for days. I know. I was scared you wouldn't answer. I didn't respond. She stepped closer. I'm sorry, Ethan. Truly sorry. Silence filled the room. Then she added, I miss you. That line hit harder than I expected. You miss me? I asked quietly. Yes. Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't realize how empty everything felt until you left. I looked away, because I understood that feeling too well. Victoria wiped her face quickly. I know I hurt you. You did. I can fix it. I turned back toward her. How? I'll change. I laughed softly, not cruelly, just tired. That's what you always say. Her voice broke. This time I mean it. I studied her face. For the first time, she wasn't the ice queen everyone feared. She was just a woman trying not to fall apart. Tears slid down her cheeks. I don't want to lose you. My throat tightened. Part of me moved toward her without thinking. Another part pulled me back. I remembered the nights I waited. The messages left unanswered. The promises that faded. Victoria stepped closer. Please give me one more chance. I looked at her for a long moment. I don't know if I can go back to what we were. I don't want the old us, she said quickly. I want better. I want to fix it. My heart felt conflicted. Because I could see she meant it. But meaning it didn't erase damage. I need time, I finally said. Her eyes widened slightly. How much time? I don't know. That answer made her shoulders drop. But she didn't argue. She only nodded slowly. Okay. We stood there in silence. No anger. No shouting. Just everything unresolved hanging between us. Victoria wiped her tears again. I'll wait. I didn't respond. Because I wasn't sure what I was waiting for anymore. And as she finally stepped back toward the door, I realized something terrifying. Forgiveness might still be possible. But forgetting never would be. Victoria asked to meet me one last time. We chose a quiet cafe this time. No offices. No interruptions. Just us. When she arrived, she sat down carefully. I wasn't sure you'd come, she said. I said I would. She nodded slowly. A long silence followed. Then she spoke first. I've been thinking a lot. So have I. Her hands rested on the table. I think I made success my priority for too long. I looked at her closely. That's true. She didn't argue. Instead, she nodded. I didn't see what it cost us. My throat tightened slightly. It cost a lot. Victoria looked down. I know. Another pause. Then I said quietly, I also need to be honest. She looked up. Go ahead. I stayed too long in a place where I wasn't valued. Her eyes softened. That wasn't my intention. I know. But intention didn't change impact. Victoria exhaled shakily. I thought you would always be there. I felt that sentence more than I expected. I was, I replied, until I wasn't. Silence returned between us. She wiped her hands together nervously. Do you hate me? I shook my head. No. Then what is this? I searched for the right words. It's acceptance. Her eyes glistened. I wish I had understood earlier. So do I. That honesty made everything quieter. For the first time, there was no anger left between us. Only truth. Victoria pushed a small folder toward me. I already signed mine. I stared at it for a moment. You were ready. I had to be. I nodded slowly. Then I opened it. My signature felt heavier this time. Not because I was unsure, but because I finally was. I signed without hesitation. The pen stopped moving. It was done. Victoria didn't speak immediately. Neither did I. We just sat there. Two people who once built a life together, now finishing it with calm hands. Finally, she whispered, I hope you find happiness. I looked at her. I hope you do too. It wasn't empty. It was real. She stood slowly. Goodbye, Ethan. I stood as well. Goodbye, Victoria. No tears this time. No breaking voices. Just closure. We walked out of the cafe separately. Not as husband and wife. Not as enemies. Just two people who had outgrown the version of life they once shared. And as I stepped into the street, I realized something simple but final. Sometimes love doesn't end with betrayal or hatred. Sometimes it ends with understanding. And the courage to choose yourself anyway. 1 year later, my life no longer felt like something I was surviving. It felt like something I was building. I stood inside my office one afternoon, looking over new project plans. My team was busy around me. Ethan, the client approved the redesign, one of them said. I nodded. Good work. Let's move to the next phase. Another designer smiled. You've built something impressive here. I looked at the sketches on the table. I just finally started listening to myself. That was the truth. My architecture company had grown faster than I expected. Not because I chased success blindly again, but because I finally worked on something I believed in. Later that week, I met Emma outside the studio. You're late, she said, teasing. Client meeting ran over. She raised an eyebrow. Always busy now. Better than being invisible. She laughed softly. You were never invisible to me. I looked at her for a moment. I know. That silence between us felt comfortable. Not rushed. Not uncertain. Just steady. We walked together down the street. So, she asked, still think you made the right choice? Every day. She smiled. Good answer. Life had changed in ways I never expected. Not just work. Not just routine. But me. The version of myself I had lost slowly came back over time. Stronger. Clearer. More grounded. A few days later, I visited a cafe after a meeting. That's when I saw her. Victoria. She was sitting alone. No phone in her hand. Just coffee and quiet. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she looked up. Ethan. I approached carefully. Victoria. We sat down at a distance that felt respectful, not distant. You look different, she said. So do you. She nodded. I've been trying to slow down. I can see that. She gave a faint smile. It took losing everything to understand what mattered. I didn't respond immediately, because I understood what she meant. I'm sorry for how things ended, she said. I know. A pause. Then she added quietly, I didn't realize what I had until it was gone. I exhaled slowly. Sometimes that's how life teaches us. Her eyes softened. I hope you're happy. I am. That answer didn't hurt anymore. It just felt true. She stood first. Take care of yourself, Ethan. You too, Victoria. We didn't say more. No reopening of old wounds. No attempts to rewrite history. Just two people acknowledging what had been learned too late. She walked away first. I watched her leave. Then I turned in the opposite direction. The street ahead was bright. Open. Mine. And for the first time, I understood something simple but powerful. The greatest victory in my life was never revenge. It was not proving anyone wrong. It was not winning back what I lost. It was choosing myself before I disappeared completely. And I kept walking forward,